Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 25th, 2025 Social Equity Working Group meeting. Starting off with item number 1 as chair, I am calling today's meeting to order at 9:36 a.m. I would like to ask today's interpreter to introduce themselves and walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting.
Good morning. Announcement from an interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please go to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on interpretation icon and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, etc., tablet, please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation if you're in the meeting room. Please check out the headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación y seleccione Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no se desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Now I will ask our clerk to confirm that we have quorum.
We have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Gueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuila. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional past and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Today, in addition to our land acknowledgement, we take a moment to recognize and honor California Native American Day, an annual state holiday observed on the 4th Friday of September. This year, that is tomorrow, Friday, September 26th. California Native American Day is a time to reflect and honor the culture, history, and contributions of California's Indigenous peoples. This day was officially designated in 1998 to celebrate the rich and diverse tribal cultures that have shaped and continue to shape our state. On this day, California Native American Day, we extend our deep respect and gratitude to the tribal nations in San Diego County, whose heritage, wisdom, and resilience continue to guide and enrich us all. Now let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this morning, I'll review the meeting process for both the working group members as well as the members of the public who wish to participate. For working group members, when you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you by name. In front of you are iPads where you will find today's agenda and the supporting materials by clicking on the arrow on the top left. Please note that you can zoom in and out using your iPad touchscreen. Clerk, can you please provide a quick reminder on how the public comment will work?
Yes, if you are in person and would like to submit a public comment, there are public comment slips out in our boardroom lobby. You can fill one out and place it there in the basket. Online, if you would like to make a public comment and you are in Zoom, press the raise hand button when the item begins and we will acknowledge you during public comment time for that item. And if you are on the phone, press *9 to raise your hand.
Wonderful. Thank you, Clerk. In order to get through all of the items on our agenda today, we will limit public comment to 2 minutes each. Do any members of the working group have any questions on the meeting procedures before we continue? All right. Item number 2 is public comment, communications and member comments. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group on any issue within the jurisdiction of SANDAG that is not on the agenda. Our clerk, are there any public comments for this item?
We have no public comment, Chair.
Okay. Do any working group members have questions or comments on items not on today's agenda? All right, seeing none, I have a few items that I would like to share. First, working group members are asked to save the date of Thursday, October 9th for a joint working group meeting with the Mobility and Sustainable Communities working groups. The staff will present an overview of the public comments received and the proposed changes to the draft 2025 regional plan. So make sure that October 9th is on your calendar. Also related to the 2025 regional plan, the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, public comment period is active for the draft regional plan until Monday, October 13th. So thank you to everyone who's reached out to your communities, and please make sure to keep up the community efforts to keep people informed and engaged. And finally, you should have all received information about the draft San Diego Regional Climate Action Roadmap public comment period. You're invited to return and to review the draft roadmap and leave comment by Friday, October 17th. Many of you should have received information on the climate table workshop being hosted by SANDAG October 8th to go over the roadmap. We hope to see some of you there. We will now proceed to approving agenda item number 3, the consent agenda, which includes only the July 24, 2025 Social Equity Working Group meeting minutes. Clerk, on this, do we have any public comment on the minutes?
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay, and do any of the working group members have comments on this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? All right, we see a motion from Carol Lewis. Do we have a second? We have a second from Jennifer Gill. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none opposed. The motion is unanimously approved. Moving on to agenda item number 4.1. To kick us off on this, it's the Regional Climate Action Roadmap, and we have Anna Bettis and Samaya Elder from SANDAG, and they will provide an overview on the Climate Action Roadmap. Members will be asked to provide feedback and to discuss. Thank you. Welcome, Anna and Samaya.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Bettis, and I'm a senior regional planner on the climate and environmental mitigation team here at SANDAG. And I'm joined today by my colleague Samaya Elder, an associate planner on our team, and we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. You might remember that we came to you back in January to share the draft greenhouse gas reduction measures in the Regional Climate Action Roadmap that our team has been working on. Since then, we've been working with stakeholders, including our CBO partners, to develop the rest of the Climate Action Roadmap, which is now out for public comment, as you heard in the announcements. On our agenda for today's presentation, I'll first kick us off with a brief overview of the grant that's supporting this work. Then I'll provide an update on the progress that we've made on the roadmap. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague Samaya, who will talk about our approach to developing the roadmap. And finally, she will close us out with looking ahead at what's next. With that, let's get started. For some background, SANDAG received a planning grant from the Environmental Protection Agency to produce 3 deliverables. The first was a priority climate action plan, which focused on how to reduce emissions from the highest emitting sectors, and we completed that in March of last year. And the second, which is the focus of today, is the Climate Action Roadmap, which is a vision for reducing economy-wide emissions through 2045. And then finally, we'll be reporting out progress made in 2027. All right, let's transition to talk more about what you can expect to see in the draft Regional Climate Action Roadmap. I'll start with the greenhouse gas inventory. We worked with the Energy Policy Initiative Center, or EPIC, at the University of San Diego to develop an updated greenhouse gas inventory for the San Diego region for the year 2022. As you may know, EPIC has worked with many local governments here on climate action plans and has also prepared the regional greenhouse gas inventories for the last 3 regional plans. The inventory is shown here on the pie chart on the slide, and as you can see, transportation remains the largest source of emissions in the region, followed by electricity, natural gas for buildings, and industrial emissions. The regional greenhouse gas inventory is included in both the draft climate action roadmap and also in Appendix G of the draft 2025 regional plan. And I do want to highlight here, since I'm mentioning the regional plan, that the sustainable community strategy for the regional plan is focused on how to reduce emissions just in that dark blue slice of the pie chart that you can see labeled passenger and light duty vehicles, whereas the roadmap is a vision that explores opportunities to reduce emissions across all sectors. So using that 2022 inventory as our base year, the roadmap provides a vision for how our region can work collaboratively to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. More specifically, it shows how the San Diego region could reduce emissions 47% below 2022 levels by 2035 through coordinated regional action and additional funding. And we look at how we can make substantial progress towards the 2045 goal of reducing emissions by 83% below 2022 levels. These 2 goals for reducing emissions in the near and long term were selected to be consistent with the timeframes of many local climate action plans and to align with state goals established in SB 32 and AB 1279. And you can get more information about how these goals were established in Appendix C of the roadmap if you're interested. To get there, the roadmap includes 23 greenhouse gas reduction measures covering 8 sectors. And I'll note that since we last saw you, we have added a water sector, which was in response to what we heard from stakeholders during the outreach we conducted during the development of the roadmap. The measures range from things like electrifying transportation and buildings, increasing energy efficiency, to conserving ecosystems that capture and store carbon, among many more, which you can read about in Chapter 6 of the roadmap. The roadmap also contains several analyses, including looking at how measures could reduce air pollution, the anticipated workforce needs, and how measures could improve quality of life for residents. With that, I'll hand it over to my colleague Samaya Elder to talk more about our approach to developing the roadmap.
Thank you, Anna. So yeah, now that you've heard an overview of what to expect in the draft roadmap, I'm going to take a step back and provide more context as to how we got to where we are today, as well as what's coming next. So we've used several outreach methods to develop the roadmap. This slide covers just the first 3, and we have 2 more to share with you on the next slide. So starting at the top here, we've held bi-monthly interagency meetings to gather ongoing feedback on the scoping and direction of the roadmap. In addition to these meetings, we've held a series of technical stakeholder meetings last fall, and that allowed us to gather detailed technical input on our draft greenhouse gas reduction measures. We've also held 2 regional workshops so far focused on the roadmap, the first of which was in July 2024. I think many of you attended that one, as well as our second workshop for the roadmap, which was in February of this year. And as the chair mentioned in her remarks, thank you for the shout out. We are planning a 3rd workshop in October on the 8th, so we'd love to see you there. These workshops convene local jurisdictions, public agencies, CBOs, tribes, and other climate stakeholders to provide input on the roadmap at key milestone points. The photo on the slide here is from our February workshop, where we had more than 60 attendees representing 43 different agencies and organizations. So really happy with that turnout. We've also, of course, been coming to SANDAG working groups and policy advisory committees at key milestone points as well. And then lastly, we've conducted significant community outreach and engagement, which includes the public survey that we did earlier this year that all of you helped us distribute. So thank you again for your support on that. I'll be touching on the survey more in just a moment, but overall, I want to highlight that a critical piece of our community outreach strategy has been partnering with all of you, our CBO partners. Special shout out to the 3 CBOs that we also have Task 9 contracts with. So Bayside Community Center, Urban Collaborative Project, and Mid-City Can. They've been conducting lots of roadmap outreach and education in their communities, and everyone really helps with gathering survey responses. So we're deeply appreciative of that. And that's what the photo on this slide is showing. If you're interested in reading more about outreach and engagement for the roadmap, you can see Chapter 2 in the draft or Appendix A. So as promised, since you all helped with the survey, we wanted to circle back today with more info on the results, as well as how it shaped the roadmap. So I know this slide has a lot of information on it. I'm going to walk through it kind of at a high level to provide an overview of the results. And then we have another slide to kind of illustrate how the results have been reflected in the roadmap. So starting here on the left-hand side, we have a list of strategies which were included in the survey. We developed this list of climate action strategies based on our research of local climate action plans that are already enacted in the region, what we heard in outreach and engagement, et cetera. So this list kind of constituted our list of initial ideas for the greenhouse gas reduction measures in the roadmap. The survey then asked people, members of the public, to indicate how important they felt each of these strategies are. So you can see the response options at the top of the slide. I apologize, it's a little bit cut off on the monitors, but it was don't know, not important, important, and very important. And in total, we received nearly 700 survey responses. So again, thank you all for helping us get the word out on that. Once we had all the responses, we then used a weighted scoring process to rank each of the strategies by how important people thought that they were, which is what this graphic is showing. So here's how each of those strategies ranked after we had totaled up all of the results. A couple of things I want to highlight about the results generally before moving on. One, you can see that the scores and the way that all of the strategies ranked all hover right around the important to very important range. So overall, it was positive to see that generally they were all seen as important. And in fact, the ones that scored lower based on the weighted scoring process are the strategies that had more responses with don't know. So really, I think that's offering an opportunity for more outreach and education on those topics. I also just want to quickly acknowledge, you can see the asterisks at the bottom of the screen. This list includes both sources of greenhouse gas emissions as well as strategies to capture and store carbon, also referred to as carbon sinks. So while the roadmap itself is really focused on ways that we can reduce the sources of GHG emissions, we do also touch on carbon sink strategies as well. So now taking a closer look at key takeaways from the survey and how these strategies are reflected in the roadmap. The top 3 strategies that we've listed here are one, planting more trees in city areas to clean the air, and that's reflected in our natural and working land sector. We also have protect and restore more natural habitats, and that's also reflected in our natural and working land sector. And then third was faster and better public transit, which is measure T1 in our transportation sector. So this kind of illustrates using the top 3 highest ranked strategies, how those results have been embedded in the roadmap, but really nearly all of the strategies included in the survey are reflected in the roadmap one way or another, since they were all seen as fairly important. So that concludes the outreach we've done so far to develop the roadmap. So now I'll turn to what's coming next. The main thing that I want to highlight today and reiterate from the chair's comments earlier is that the roadmap is available on the SANDAG website for public comment. The web address is sandag.org/cap. We're also planning to coordinate with the staff liaisons for this working group to send the link directly in a follow-up email, so you'll have that as well. And the public comment period is anticipated to be open through October 17th, so we'd love to hear from you and others at your organizations or in your communities. As the chair mentioned, you also should have received some information about the next regional workshop for the roadmap, which is on October 8th. So we'd love to see you there. And then, excuse me. I also wanted to highlight that in addition to presenting at working groups, we'll be presenting to the Regional Planning Committee on October 3rd. And then finally, we'll be taking all of the feedback that we received during this public comment period and embedding it into the roadmap to finalize it by December 1st. So that concludes our update on the roadmap for you all today. Thank you so much for your time, and we're happy to take any questions or comments.
That was great. If any working group members would like to offer, we'd like to start with first public comment. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay, now I'll turn it to the working group. Does anyone in the working group have any comments or questions on this? Yes, Carmina.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation, and it's been great to help do the outreach for this project. And it's also really amazing to see that trees are one of the top priorities that the community has been sharing. I do want to note that it's important that any policy recommendations include that maintenance should be required for at least the first 3 years of establishment of the tree so that we make sure they survive. But also, agencies should be conducting outreach with the community prior to planting. I think one of the most important things to the success of trees is also making sure that the community is aware that trees are coming and they're involved in the decision-making of where those trees are going to go. And you can use the city of San Diego as an example. They have a grant right now to plant trees in certain communities. And we've been hearing a lot from residents about, yes, we're happy that we got trees, and others are not happy because they weren't consulted before they were planted. And so like some people have trees where they're parking their cars, and now it's difficult for them to open their cars or unload things like that. So just making sure that they're part of the engagement and decision-making.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. We'll take a look at what we have there. Off the top of my head, I know we do mention maintenance when it comes to trees and the way that we captured and the supporting actions for that measure. But we're taking notes on everything you said, and if we don't have it reflected already, we can take a look at between draft and final. So appreciate you raising those items.
Do we have any? Oh, Jesse.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions / comments. The first one, I know like it's a roadmap, and these are typically like high level, but I'm wondering if in this document there will be conversations, or I guess you guys mentioned that there's going to be 23 different like measures, right? But is there going to be some sort of like description and like recommendations for prioritizing certain sectors over others, right? Because if you look at slide 5, you clearly see that there's a lot of greenhouse gas emissions coming from like passengers and light vehicle duty. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be some sort of like comment on this document that's going to like touch upon what we should prioritize as a region.
Yeah, thank you for that remark. We don't necessarily say that, you should do one measure over another, but I will say we do include a little bit more detail on the measures from the 4 highest emitting sectors. So you'll notice that for the measures in transportation, buildings, electricity, and industry, we have some examples of near and long-term milestones that we'd want to see in the region with some tangible examples of like projects. So kind of reflecting what you're talking about around, where we could get sort of the biggest bang for our buck when it comes to reducing emissions. We do also quantify the reductions from the measures in the roadmap. So the region can really see what the potential reductions are using the assumptions that we've laid out. So we hope that that can inform regional action. But really, we're not seeing this document as just something that SANDAG would do. We hope that it can inform what lots of folks in the region are doing to move forward together. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if you have any follow-up.
Yeah, and I think that naturally leads to like my next question, which is like kind of like what are next steps? Based on what you should just share right now, I'm kind of like assuming that the whole purpose of this document is sort of to provide some sort of guidance slash like vision for jurisdictions across the county. And that's kind of like the intention for this document.
Yeah, really looking ahead. Well, first we've got, of course, our convening where we want to speak with various partners, stakeholders in the region around implementation and how we can move this forward. But our vision for the roadmap is that it can help support regional funding proposals. So we look forward to working with others in the region to find opportunities to move forward some of these measures in there. Certainly the areas where SANDAG has the authority to implement, we're looking for ways to fund those measures, things like electric vehicle infrastructure, for example. But yeah, no, great question.
Do we have any other questions from the working group? Yes, Claire.
Thank you for this presentation. It's, of course, I think exciting for us to see that we're continuing to champion this work here. I am curious, right? It's an EPA grant and there's a lot going on over there right now. I'm curious if there are concerns about the stability of the funding source, and then moving beyond the project, period. If you anticipate, and maybe you don't know, and that's okay too, but just thinking from a long-term perspective, if we anticipate any impacts there, and then maybe kind of going off what this is separate question, what Jesse was maybe alluding to is, like, are there any, like, is anything enforceable, or how do we ensure that jurisdictions are, that there's like full buy-in from jurisdictions on the roadmap and that there's follow through on the recommendations in the roadmap and how we can support that?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I'll tackle the first one and then I'll move to the second one. So we still do have our funding from the EPA to continue making progress on the roadmap. We haven't heard otherwise. The thing we're trying to be super vigilant about is following every single thing to a T. So there isn't any reason that our funding can be pulled. So we're kind of just moving forward. We are in regular communication with our EPA representatives. There's regular calls where they update all grantees on sort of the status. So, knock on wood, we still have the funding. And then kind of looking ahead, we see this as a vision, it goes beyond any one administration. So certainly it's a challenging environment right now for funding for climate. The EPA, we anticipated in the past, maybe there would be more funding for implementation of things where people are putting in their, long-term roadmaps for climate action, which we may not see in the near term, but we really want to work together with, regional partners, advocate for additional funding and look for additional funding. So that's on the funding front. And then on the second question that you had, the roadmap is voluntary, so it's not a mandate, although we're aligning with goals. They're just goals that we're looking at how we can meet. So we just see it as a way where we have a vision that shows how we could make progress towards these goals, which we think can help inform our regional partners and help us better get there. But yes, it isn't, these aren't mandates. So it is sort of a voluntary document.
Anna, can you talk about the monitoring that's required by the EPA grant?
Sure. Yeah. So the next deliverable, I can go back just so you got that. There we go. The next deliverable, which I know we didn't touch too much on here, is the status report, but we, through that 2027 deliverable, will be, and I'm sure beyond that, just as a regional agency, be looking at how the region is making progress toward what we've put in the roadmap. So we'll continue to do that. I know we have kind of on a parallel track here in the EIR for the regional plan. We've included measures to track progress on climate action in the region. So there's some commitments there from SANDAG to, continue to, watch how we're moving things forward and think about how we can enable more progress.
Do you mind if I add to that really quick? Just on the funding piece too. If you are interested in seeing some of the programs and funding opportunities that we've identified, Tentatively, those are included in the draft roadmap by sector. So we've got a table of, here's some potential grant opportunities for the measures in the transportation sector, and then repeated so on and so forth. Obviously, as I'm sure you all know, those have been changing very quickly, and we've been doing our best to kind of update it using our best judgment as to like what will still be available. But that's at least provided as a starting point. So we'll keep taking a look at that list.
Carmina.
Can you explain a little bit how you're going to be tracking that progress? Is it that you're just looking at what agencies are implementing measures or projects that are kind of outlined on the roadmap, or actually tracking the greenhouse emissions?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more the former, really looking at how local governments in our region are continuing to move forward on, various climate action measures to reduce emissions. Certainly interested if you have any guidance on what would be most useful there. Our team has been really focused, of course, on getting the roadmap ready. So we haven't fully laid out what the next step will look like. But now that we have concluded with our drafting of the roadmap, once we've got that, we'll be spending a lot of time thinking about what that will entail. So yeah, open if you have any comments on what might be important as we design that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then follow-up question / suggestion. Are you only tracking accomplishments from local government, or also community-based organizations and grassroots community work?
I think we're anticipating to track both. I also jumped back to this slide on the first bullet, the interagency meetings. We're hoping to formalize those as like a task force moving forward. So that will allow us to continue to engage in an ongoing way, all of the public agencies and local jurisdictions and so on and so forth, so that the roadmap stays really relevant and we're continuing to talk about with them, here, maybe a funding opportunity just came up. This aligns with a measure in the roadmap, like which of you as implementing authorities would be able to take this on and help, make progress in this area. So we do have a plan for continuing to talk about progress on this. And then same with the workshops. I think we're still figuring out what that will look like moving forward, but that it kind of brings a broader group, including the CBOs and other grassroots climate organizations, so that they can provide updates as well as to things that they're working on. So yeah, I feel like the communication pathways are definitely, we're getting a much clearer idea as this year comes to a close and the roadmap is finalized of what that will look like.
Appreciate it. Any further comments? I just had with the current, in addition to the funding on the federal level, just the federal seems to be taking the position that they have more authority than the states to control the amounts of emissions, and instead of setting kind of a floor, now they're saying it's a ceiling and that the states can't exceed the requirements that the federal government has set out. How would this impact it, if at all, the roadmap?
I may need to do some more research and get back to you on that one. I don't know if you have any remarks, Samaya.
I'm looking at Naomi from the Energy Policy Initiative Center, who is one of our technical consultant for the roadmap, because I'm thinking about how there are categories included in kind of the projections for the roadmap. So maybe I can go back to that slide. And I think we have chosen, is this right? Naomi, correct me if I'm wrong, to include some of the statewide policies that are now being challenged at the federal level. So it's kind of a wait and see what happens and how that pans out. But for now, I think we've chosen to incorporate those, like the ZEV rulings.
Yes, we did choose to incorporate those in this roadmap, and that's following CARB's guidance that they want to, stick with those rulings. They think that they're challengeable, that the waivers were pulled for the transportation sector in general. And, going to every other sector, I mean, we're kind of more following state's guidance on what we think is achievable here.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will now move on to our next item. This is item number 4.2. It's the California Baja Border Resiliency Plan. We will have information from Adana Martinez from SANDAG.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chair and working group members. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Kim Smith. I'm a senior regional planner here at SANDAG, and I'm joined by my colleague Adana Martinez to provide an overview on efforts to develop the California-Baja California Border Resiliency Plan. So here is what we plan to cover today. First, we'll provide an overview of our plan, and then we'll move on to discuss the new interagency task force that was formed to guide the development of the plan. Then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Adana to go over our public communications and stakeholder outreach strategy. And then we'll wrap up with a quick review of our timeline, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions or comments you may have. So what is the BRP? So we and the other 7.3 million people who call the Baja California border region home, we're all very fortunate. We share a very dynamic and integrated region with shared economies, populations, and some of the most diverse ecosystems you can find. Although dynamic, our border region is not immune to environmental impacts. As you can see in the photos above, we endure severe storms, flooding, extreme heat waves, and wildfires, all of which are occurring more and more frequently. On a daily level, our border region communities are impacted by polluted air and water, and this is made worse with extreme climate events. Which brings us to our plan. In the fall of last year, SANDAG was awarded a Caltrans Climate Adaptation Planning Grant to develop just that, a comprehensive plan to address climate resilience and impacts to communities hit hardest in the border region and the transportation network serving them. The Border Resilience Plan would by no means be starting from scratch, but would be building on many years of prior and ongoing work led by our border region community leaders, agencies, stakeholders, and community groups, like some of those represented here today. And on the screen is just a tiny fraction of the long list of existing projects, programs, working groups, and initiatives working towards common environmental goals. Our plan would act as a platform to pull all of this existing work together to find out how our border region can come together to better support what's already being done and identify ways to partner on new strategies and build towards more coordinated actions on environmental issues. So as far as our project area, the plan will focus on the communities 10 miles to the north and south of the border from the Pacific Ocean east all the way to the California-Arizona border. So a very large project area. So the slide above depicts the how, what, and why of our plan. And if you're starting from left, looking right, we are going to be looking to see how climate stressors such as temperature, precipitation, wildfire, and sea level rise, together with effects related to air quality and water quality, are impacting our multimodal transportation infrastructure and users within our border region. And so you just heard from Anna and Samaya about our climate action roadmap. And so how is our plan different than the roadmap? Well, the roadmap looks at climate action and mitigation planning for the San Diego region, while our border resiliency plan is more focused on how our transportation network can adapt to these climate stressors shown above in order to benefit our communities within the border region. To determine this is going to require research and analysis of what is currently being done and what is needed. And this is going to require strong binational coordination. And we're proposing this through a new interagency task force and robust stakeholder and public outreach, which in turn is going to produce our border resiliency plan that will include climate adaptation and resiliency strategies that will continuously inform decision-making and the prioritization process of projects within the Baja California border region. In addition, it will also include the development of metrics and a screening methodology for integrating those adaptation strategies into the border master plan process. I know I'm talking about a lot of different plans. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Border Master Plan or the BMP, it is the plan that coordinates and plans the delivery of those transportation projects at the border. So our new interagency task force is going to provide the technical guidance, background knowledge, and interagency coordination to address those climate adaptation challenges. Policy guidance from our plan will be provided through the SANDAG Borders Committee and supported by our project development team, which includes SANDAG, Caltrans, the Southern California Area of Governments, or SCAG, and the state of Baja California, in addition to our new interagency task force, which is shown in turquoise on the slide above. Membership of our task force reflects binational representatives from federal, state, local, binational, and tribal government agencies. And as mentioned previously, so much of our plan will consist of not duplicating ongoing efforts, but working with existing forums, environmental groups, task force, academia, nonprofits, community-based organizations, and the private sector, in addition to gathering input from the public through our robust public participation and community outreach effort. And finally, what are the specific outcomes of our plan? Well, first would be to identify those climate and public health stressors in our project area, to identify the work that's currently being done to address those issues, including an inventory of our existing programs, planning efforts, what are our data sets, and what are those gaps. And this is also going to include an interactive spatial mapping component. Our plan is going to provide an assessment of climate vulnerabilities and challenges impacting our border communities and the transportation network serving them. It will include strategies to adapt to these unique climate impacts, including a list of projects, programs, and strategies, responsible entities, locations, potential funding sources, priority actions, and metrics for tracking project success. So that's a summary of the Border Resiliency Plan. And as I mentioned before, community outreach is a very big component. Attachment 1 to this item includes our draft public outreach and engagement strategy. And now I'm going to turn it over to Adana to go over our outreach goals and approach. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adana Martinez. I'm the outreach lead for the Border Resiliency Plan. So I'm really excited to talk about the outreach strategies that we have outlined here on this slide. So the first strategy we're going to talk about is raising awareness about the plan. But what does that look like? It looks like us going to presentations. It looks like us developing a large community list that we're continuously updating and reaching out to those folks to make sure that they're involved and they can provide feedback or share feedback with their communities. So the next strategy is gathering feedback to inform strategies. And we're doing that in a variety of ways. We're going to launch a public survey in the next few months. We're also developing a strategy to reach out to focus groups so we can gather robust data from community members that are key in the area. We also have a monthly PDT where we seek feedback from partners in this effort. And then we also have an interagency task force. Right now, we are working on the 3rd meeting, and there should be 8 throughout the project. The third strategy is engaging with communities and the public. So we're going to be doing that through classic tabling, different communities, social media, and then working with CBOs and community partners and any interested parties. We're also trying to create collaborative relationships to create a unified and coordinated approach. And that can be done through presentations, but also working with our CBO partners. And we're committed to improving the environment and overall quality of life for residents in the region. And so the way we're really doing that is gathering this feedback and then forming these adaptation strategies. Okay, so we have a phased outreach approach here. And so phase 1, we've completed the preliminary research and planning. So we've established an interagency task force. We've done robust research of community partners and developed a database that we're continuously seeking more information about people who might be out there to help us seek that feedback. And we're also developing a public engagement strategy, which you have an attachment to. But if you have any feedback, please let us know. Phase 2 will be public awareness and education. So this is currently where we are, August through October. We're creating multiple communication channels. We have a website that's live. We're developing a newsletter and going to be sending e-blasts and then building relationships with community groups to share information. We're also developing a strategy for focus group interviews and meeting continuously to discuss what those focus groups will look like and what kind of feedback we're seeking from them. The third phase is going to be the public outreach ramp up. So November through spring, which is April 2026, we'll be launching a public survey, which is coming soon. Pop-ups at community events and presentations. So that looks like tabling at community events, meeting the community where they are, going to the San Isidro Transit Center where we see lots of border crossings and lots of folks who live on both sides of the border or work here. And we'll also start beginning the focus group interviews. Next summer through winter, we're going to be doing continuing engagement. So we're going to be launching a second public survey for feedback on the draft plan. Continue engaging public, task force, and focus groups, and pop-ups at community events and presentations. Finally, the final plan development, January through June of 2027, we're going to be holding a community workshop or workshops, depending on feedback, and announce and garner excitements for the next steps.
Thank you, Adana. So now to wrap up, I'll share our anticipated timeline. And just some key things to note is that our grant was awarded earlier this year, and we've been ramping up by gathering a lot of the existing information, reports, what groups are working in our project area. Our grant does go through June of 2027, so time is ticking here. We have several deliverables being completed along the way. As you can see, just this past spring, we held our first interagency task force. We again started drafting our public engagement strategy. This summer and fall, we've really been focused on doing the community partner research and looking at those presentations to our working groups and our PACs like today. Again, began our summary of the existing conditions and development of our spatial map. And just in July, we held our second interagency task force where we gathered information from our participants on what climate stressors are affecting, their mobility moving across the region, their quality of life. And then in fall and winter, we're going to be focusing really on finalizing. We're bringing our consultant on board, finalizing some of the existing conditions, and starting to review those climate stressors and impacts. The first public survey will be released, and we'll be holding our third interagency task force meeting at the end of October, and it will focus on air quality. Moving into winter, spring, really kind of diving into the technical aspects of our plan, completing those deliverables. And then in spring and summer, that's when we're going to be focusing on developing those climate adaptation strategies and list of projects, programs, and plans. And then fall and winter of 2026 will be when we'll develop our draft plan with policy recommendations that will go to the Borders Committee, community workshops, and continued outreach. And our draft plan will be out we will have a public review period with our final plan and our grant ramping up in 2027. And as you can see in the bottom, the arrow depicts that we will have continuous coordination with our community engagement, and our stakeholders. And so we did just get started, but we anticipate coming back to this group to gather input as the plan develops, and also to provide additional updates. One more. Oh, there you go. And so if you have any additional comments or questions that don't get addressed today, this is our contact information. In addition, please explore our website, as we've added a special page for the Border Resiliency Plan where you can access additional information. There's an FAQ that helps answer more questions. And then there is also going to be a newsletter that you can subscribe to get additional updates as they come in. And so that concludes our presentation today. So Adana and I would be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay, and I'll look to the working group members. Does anyone have any public comments or questions? No. Excellent presentation. I don't see that we have any comments or questions. I really appreciate you bringing this forward and look forward to more collaboration. Just for my edification, what cities are included in the San Diego County area in that 10-mile border region?
Gosh, I hope I don't leave anything out. City of San Diego, City of Imperial Beach, There's City of Chula Vista. Why am I blanking? National City. Our tribal, I'm blanking.
Coronado.
Oh, County of San Diego, we've got, and then we've got, the areas in Imperial County, we've got Hopeville, Calexico, we've got Mexicali on the other side of the border. So there's quite a few.
Excellent. All right, yes, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. That question kind of spurred a thought in my mind. I'm curious, I'm with in the community of National City, and the port is such a huge impact on so many things. And so I'm curious if they're a part of the conversations for this plan.
Yeah, the port is included on our interagency task force. So yes, they are.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to continued engagement and see how we can help and partner in this. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Item number 5, which is the adjournment. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will take place on Thursday, October 23rd. Though, as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, there will also be a special joint working group meeting on October 9th, and those details will be sent out soon. If there are no final member comments, thank you all for coming today. As a reminder to all of our members, please see SANDAG staff to validate your parking tickets and to complete sign-in sheets. We are adjourned at 10:27 a.m. Thank you.